Kawamura, a young, promising manager of a large company, enters a bar where his colleagues have lured him to celebrate his upcoming wedding. People are having a good time, drinking and messing around. At last, the group of 11 real estate agency employees tries to take a group photo. However, instead of a photo, a short video is accidentally recorded, which only adds to the fun. After the party ends, the groom's friend Kase hands him his gift, and Kawamura admits that he knew about the planned party because his boss, who is also his future father-in-law, personally told him about it. The guys chat amicably for a bit more and then part ways. Kawamura heads home and realizes that he has had too much to drink. He starts swaying from side to side, though just a couple of minutes ago everything was under control. Everything around him suddenly darkens, and then the young man falls into an open sewer manhole. Waking up, Kawamura finds himself at the bottom of a deep, isolated concrete well. All around him are swarming insects. There are rat corpses and remains of some animals lying nearby. An old ladder, the only way to get out of the trap by himself, has long since rotted and broken. Moreover, it turns out that the young man has seriously injured his leg in the fall. Somehow bandaging his leg with a necktie, Kawamura tries to climb the ladder but falls down. Realizing the helplessness of his situation, he starts calling for help. However, no one responds. Meanwhile, time has long past midnight, and the young man realizes that he risks being late for his own wedding. He rummages through the items in his pockets and bag, looking for things that could help him get out of the sewer. He comes across Kase's gift, which turns out to be a lighter. In the light of a small flame, the young man looks around, but finds nothing except piles of garbage. Pulling out his smartphone, Kawamura tries to call his fiancée. However, her phone is turned off. The groom leaves her a voice message and briefly tells her about the trouble he has encountered. He apologizes for calling so late and then suggests that he might be late for the wedding, or at least smell like ass. Then the young man tries to contact Kase. The friend also does not answer. Then Kawamura begins to call all the numbers in his phone one by one, but he can't get through to anyone. It comes to the contacts of former girlfriends, but none of them pick up the phone either. Just then, just when Kawamura was about to despair, he receives an incoming call on his mobile from Mai, a girl he dated 5 years ago. Kawamura tells her everything and asks his ex to come. At first, she thinks it's some kind of silly prank, but still tries to find out where Kawamura is. It's only then that he realizes he doesn't know his exact location and checks it via GPS. Mai suggests calling the police, but Kawamura refuses and sends her a map. He somehow manages to convince Mai to come to his aid. He insists that he might be late for an important event. Then, the girl admits that she knows about his wedding. Mai is clearly hurt by her ex, but still prepares to come to his rescue. After a while, it starts to rain. Kawamura gets wet, but waits patiently to be rescued. Later, he receives a call, and Mai reports that she has arrived at the specified coordinates and found no manhole. She again convinces him to call the police. Reluctantly, he agrees, finds the number of the nearest police station, and calls. The policeman listens to the young man and suggests that it is an old, non-functioning sewer. Then the officer asks to list everything he sees around him and promises to send a police officer to him within 10 minutes. Much more than the promised time passes, but no one comes to help. Kawamura contacts Mai again, but the girl searched a large part of the block and couldn't find any open manholes. The young man begins to doubt that she even looked for him. What if she's still upset with him and wants revenge? He is tired and cold, and this rain is getting stronger, but Mai doesn't understand what he's talking about because there's no rain in Shibuya. Apparently, the guy is in another city. Now Kawamura is truly scared. He turns on the video function on his smartphone, tossing it onto the manhole to try to capture the surroundings. But the phone gets stuck on the top step of the ladder, and then a stinky gas starts to emit from a piece of rusty pipe below. He finds tape in his bag and seals the hole, but it doesn't help. He manages to knock down his smartphone and sees unfamiliar surroundings on the video. He receives a call from the police. They ask him to clarify details of the incident. The officer's hints at heavy alcohol intoxication annoy Kawamura, as he has long since sobered up. Then, an interesting idea comes to his mind. Kawamura creates a social media account posing as a young woman, finding an appropriate photo for the profile picture, and names her the girl from the sewers. As this beauty, Kawamura writes that she was in Shibuya, where she fell into a manhole and is currently trapped. She has a leg injury, is very cold as a catfish, one might say, and is asking for help. At that moment, some kind of chemical filth starts pouring into the pit. Then, Mai calls, asking him to send a photo of his wound, as she is a nurse. After inspecting the cut, she asks Kawamura to stitch up the wound. The guy again checks his pockets and finds a stapler, while simultaneously talking about his internet plan. He thinks that people will be more willing to help a girl than an ordinary guy. Mai approves of his actions and the plan, and instructs him on how to properly stitch the wound. Through screams and tears, Kawamura follows her instructions, recalling how, when he was a child, everyone, even his parents, didn't care about him. Having finished the operation, the guy apologizes to the girl for everything that happened in the past. Meanwhile, Mai draws his attention to the girl from the sewers post, which quickly goes viral and gains an unprecedented number of views and comments. He is asked to specify his location, and he writes about the rainy sky where there is no moon. People start asking questions and discussing among themselves, trying to figure out in which area it's currently raining, but no one can identify the place from the blurry photos. There are many theories, including alien abduction. But one question about having enemies makes Kawamura think. Suddenly, he feels like someone in a black hood is watching him from above, and the girl from the sewers suggests that she might have been punished for her brother's deeds. One of the subscribers, the Prince of the Abyss, promises to bring justice and asks for more details about the brother. Kawamura gives his real name and workplace and promises to pay 100,000 yen for information about him. After that, he contacts Mai again and asks her to go to the bar where he was before the incident and check the surveillance video, because he suspects that someone slipped a sedative into his cocktail. Meanwhile, Kawamura looks at photos with his fiancée, remembering how happy they were when they found out they were going to be parents. Meanwhile, under the post of the girl from the sewers, messages appear with stories about him, Kawamura, where people are amazed at his success. After all, at 29, he's already the senior sales manager. He has about 50 girls in his love list, but he's marrying his boss's daughter. One person confesses that he knows Kase, who envies Kawamura and wants to ruin his wedding. Kawamura calls Mai and names Kase as the suspect, but the girl reports that the bar is already closed and she won't be able to do anything until morning. Then, the guy himself reviews the photos and videos from the party and suddenly realizes that there were not 11, but 12 people, but the extra person is caught in the frame from the back, and he was in a hood, so it's impossible to identify him. And it was he who passed the beer to Kawamura. The guy sends a photo of the culprit to the chat. Immediately, Kase calls him, outraged by the story being spread by some girl from the sewers. He knows that his friend doesn't have a sister. Kawamura accuses him, and he can't believe what's happening. The call is cut off after Kawamura suggests that Kase is in love with his fiancée. Suddenly, Kawamura hears the noise of a railway and immediately writes about it in the chat. It's a good thing his phone battery is better than any existing phone battery. Suddenly, the Prince of the Abyss reports that he has caught Kase and intends to interrogate him harshly. Kawamura sees a video of his bloodied friend and asks to stop looking for the perpetrator and focus on finding him instead. One of the commenters reminds that the location can be determined by the pattern on the manhole cover. Kawamura takes a screenshot from the previously received video and posts it in the chat. Someone immediately recognizes the abandoned factory. One of the sympathizers reports that they are nearby and will arrive soon. By this time, the sewer is quickly filling up with foam of an unknown origin. He climbs onto a piece of the ladder, but the foam catches up with him. Meanwhile, a blogger goes on air, rushing to help the girl from the sewers. The guy enthusiastically shows the territory of the abandoned factory, but no matter how much he searches, he can't find Kawamura. Many commenters make the most absurd assumptions, while Kawamura almost drowns in foam. Remembering the lighter, he lights it, an explosion occurs, and the foam flies out, leaving the poor guy at the bottom of the pit. Immediately, Mai calls. Kawamura hopes that the sun will rise soon, and then they will definitely find him. Suddenly, he cuts off the conversation because the remains of a person emerge from under a pile of dirt. He realizes where he is and screams in horror. Then he tells Mai that he can be found in the ruins of an abandoned school in one of the villages. He sharply refuses to call the police and asks the girl to come quickly. The actions roll back to the time when Kawamura worked at a waste incineration plant. One day, he tells his colleagues that he got a job at a prestigious firm and leaves for the city. The guy is congratulated and sent off to a new life. But in the evening, one of his colleagues comes to his house, kills the guy, and dumps his body in a manhole of an abandoned sewer. Then undergoes facial surgery, and he arrives at the new place of work, becoming Kawamura. Now, the killer in the pit calls the girlfriend of the boy he murdered in the past and confesses that he is an imposter, but she has known this for a long time. After that, he returns to the chat and confesses that the criminal is Kawamura's girlfriend from his youth. Their parents were against their marriage, so they broke up, but then she started stalking the guy and demanding meetings. The girl from the sewers doesn't want to involve the police, but would be grateful for help. Kawamura creates another account and allegedly on behalf of their classmate names the girl Natsumi. Immediately in the chat, there is a wave of hate against Natsumi. The Prince of the Abyss promises to punish Natsumi. At this moment, the commentators finally figure out Kawamura's location, but this scares him even more than staying in the pit forever. He writes that the girl from the sewers was rescued by passers-by and thanks everyone. Immediately, there is a call from the police rushing to help, but Kawamura reports that he is fine, he is saved, and no need to worry anymore. The guy tries to bury the corpse at the bottom of the well, but in vain. At this moment, he hears the sound of a motor, and Mai calls. Dropping a rope down, Kawamura struggles to get out of the manhole, but after catching his breath, he suddenly recognizes his rescuer, who turns out to be Natsumi. She calls him by his real name and confesses that she hacked his phone. So, he was not talking to Mai, but to her. The girl sits on the exhausted guy and traces the outline of his face with a marker. She unfolds surgical instruments, while he tries to prove that he simply used the appearance of a missing guy, to which Natsumi shows the recording of his message, where he names the location of his whereabouts. So, he definitely knew where he hid her boyfriend's body in the past. The girl reminds him that stolen things need to be returned, and she makes an incision on his cheek. And then the fake Kawamura confesses that he was always ignored. That's why he wanted to improve his life by stealing someone else's face. Soon, he will become a father and asks for a chance to see his child. Natsumi sympathizes with him and drops the scalpel, but now Kawamura will attack her. He tries to strangle her and drags her to the pit. Suddenly, an arrow pierces him, and the guy falls back into the manhole. It turns out that the Prince of the Abyss, who turns out to be a teenager with a bow, came to her aid. The fake Kawamura regains consciousness at the bottom of the pit again when the rope crawls up, and the Prince of the Abyss, thinking that this guy was keeping the girl in the sewer, closes the manhole cover because the fake Kawamura made up a story in which the girl was in the sewer and not the guy. So, the Prince of the Abyss didn't believe him and closed the manhole. Left in the dark, the murderer and thief of someone else's face lights a lighter and in the light of the flame sees in a puddle the reflection of his true face, which he tries to cover up with dirt. And his phone receives a message from his fiancée, who finally waited for the happy day of their wedding. The film surprises with a completely unpredictable finale, but the viewer gets little hints that the clerk's story is not as simple as it seems, and the denouement is so shocking that it changes the perception of the entire film.